So, was in the mood of doing a video after quite some time, but I didn't want to contribute to the PoE2 video spam nonsense, at least not too much. I will share stuff about that once I feel like I have something to share. But today I got something completely different. I was thinking about, okay, cool. I feel like PoE2 is kind of ending for me, has been for a while. Probably let's do like a kind of maybe like a recap of the league I didn't post about, but it was kind of boring. I just did like a Zenith, probably the most expensive build I ever did. It was super crazy, it was super fun, but didn't feel right. And I stumbled, I had an idea. What if, regarding PoE1, basically, the most iconic thing for me personally is Poison Seismic Trap. So I figured, let's throw the notes of my super long old build guides into Notebook LM to create a podcast and see what happens. And it turned out amazing. So I have some old footage for you of Poison Seismic, like 319, 320 or whenever that was, and a podcast about that build guide. And I think it turned out absolutely amazing. Maybe I just think it's so funny because I wrote that guide back then, and it's really funny and gets super inspirational at the end, and it's like the best thing ever. So yeah, this is kind of my little goodbye to PoE1, which it feels like right now. So yeah, I hope you have a really good time getting hyped for PoE2, and let's hope it's not bad. We'll figure out very soon, like 8-9 days or something. So yeah, goodbye PoE1, I guess. Enjoy. I just wanted to share that. I hope you like it. It's really funny, I think. So yeah, bye.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're diving into something you don't see every day.
Oh.
It's a Path of Exile build guide called the Seismic Old Guide.
Interesting.
Now, even if you've never played Path of Exile, stick with us.
Right.
We're going to pull out some really smart strategies from this guide.
Okay.
And a refreshing approach to learning. Really, you can apply this stuff to anything, not just games.
I like it.
It's like problem solving disguised as a game guide.
Ooh, sneaky.
Yeah. So what I find fascinating about this Seismic Old Guide is how accessible it is.
Okay.
It takes this huge, intimidating process, building a character in Path of Exile, and breaks it down to phases, each with clear goals. So it's way less overwhelming for new players.
Yeah, definitely. Makes it much less intimidating for sure.
Right. It's like, instead of this tangled mess of choices you have in the game, you get a clear roadmap. You don't have to be a veteran to follow along.
No, not at all.
And you know what else is cool? It takes some pretty unconventional paths to get there.
Absolutely. One of the things that really stood out to me was the leveling strategy.
Oh.
Using Poisonous Concoction, which is kind of a surprise because at its core, this build is all about Seismic Trap.
Right. Traps.
So you wouldn't expect poison to be so important early on.
Yeah, it's like showing up to baking class.
Yeah.
You're expecting to make cookies, but they're like, first we're going to make sourdough. And sourdough takes forever,
Right, it's a process.
But here's the thing. The guide doesn't just throw you in the deep end with this weird poison idea.
No.
It gives you specific search terms to use with in-game vendors. Like literally what to type in to find the right gear at each stage.
Oh, wow. The attention to detail is incredible.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It really shows that the author wants to make this experience smooth and stress-free, anticipating the roadblocks and giving you the tools to overcome them.
I love that. Okay, so big picture. We've got this unusual early game focused on Poisonous Concoction.
Right.
Then we hit this phase called Trap Swap, which honestly, the name alone gets me excited.
Oh, it's a game changer for sure. This is where the guide really sets itself apart from the typical Seismic Trap builds.
Okay, so most build would have you switch to traps ASAP, right? Like, why wait?
Exactly, but this guide does the opposite. It strategically delays that transition.
Okay, now that's counterintuitive. Why hold back the trap part of a trap build?
Well, think about it like building a house. You wouldn't start with the roof, right? You need a strong foundation first. And in this build, traps just aren't that effective early on. You don't have the skills or gear to make them shine.
Makes sense.
But by focusing on Poisonous Concoction first, you're laying that foundation. You're gaining experience, collecting gear, setting yourself up for a seamless transition to traps later on.
So it's like playing the long game instead of going for those quick wins. I love that.
It's a strategy that applies to so much more than just gaming.
Totally. And once you make that trap swap, you run into this concept called Eldritch Battery.
Ah, yes, Eldritch Battery. This is where things get really interesting. Imagine you're running a marathon. You'd usually rely on your glycogen stores for energy, right?
Oh, your carbs.
But what if you could tap into your body fat reserves instead?
Oh.
That's essentially what Eldritch Battery does. It lets you use your energy shield, which is normally for defense, to power your skills instead of mana.
That's such a cool way to put it. So you're basically turning your defense into an offensive weapon.
Exactly. And that's why the guide emphasizes certain gear choices, like the Leper's Alm shield and helmets with high energy shield. You need enough juice to keep those traps firing.
Makes sense. You gotta fuel those traps somehow.
Yeah.
And speaking of gear, I noticed the guide mentions needing 188 intelligence for a specific wand, Obliteration.
Right.
The author even jokes about needing a super strong belt to make up for the lack of strength on other gear.
Yeah.
I like that little touch of humor. It keeps things lighthearted.
Absolutely. It makes the guide feel more approachable. But moving on, the next phase focuses on getting 100% chance to poison with your attacks.
That sounds pretty specific.
It is, and it's crucial for this build. And what's interesting is the guide actually debunks a common myth about poison chance on weapons. Turns out, it doesn't affect your traps at all.
Oh, wow. So even experienced players can learn something new from this guide.
Exactly. There's always room to refine your understanding, no matter how much you think you know. And for newer players, the guide specifically recommends anointing toxic strikes early on.
I'm guessing that's a way to boost your poison chance.
You got it. And what I appreciate is that the guide doesn't just tell you what to do, it explains why.
Right. So you're not just blindly following instructions, you're learning the logic behind it.
Exactly. Which makes you a better player in the long run.
Absolutely. It's empowering.
Yeah, it's all about understanding the why. Speaking of challenges, though, we gotta talk about boss encounters.
Oh, yeah, the big baddies.
Right. These are some of the toughest fights you'll face in Path of Exile. And this guide has some really smart strategies for taking them down.
The bossing setup section really stood out to me. It recommends swapping out Exsanguinate for Blade Trap.
Interesting choice.
Yeah, what's the thinking there?
It's all about maximizing your damage against bosses. See, Blade Trap applies this nasty debuff called Wither, which makes the boss take way more chaos damage, which, as you know, is what this build is all about.
Ah, so it's like softening them up before the Prison Storm hits.
Exactly. And to make sure you're applying as many Wither stacks as possible, the guide recommends using a Cold Iron Point weapon.
Interesting.
Now, the cool thing is, you're not using Cold Iron Point for its damage. It's purely for applying Wither.
So it's not about the flashiest tool. It's about finding the right tool for the job.
Exactly. And knowing how to use it effectively. So you've conquered the bosses, you're a poison master, what's next?
Well, the guide goes into these endgame refinement phases.
Right, phases 2 through 6.
Yeah.
This is where you really fine-tune your build. Think of it like tuning a high-performance engine. You've got the core components. Now it's all about optimizing for peak performance.
So this is where the real in-depth knowledge comes in, right? Crafting, gear optimization, all that.
Absolutely. But the guide does a great job of breaking it down, even for players who aren't crafting experts.
Okay, good.
One thing that stood out to me was the emphasis on planning your attribute requirements early, like making sure you have enough strength or intelligence later in the game to equip key pieces of gear.
So you don't hit a wall later on like, oh, I need 200 strength for this awesome helmet, but I only have 150.
Exactly. It's like planning your route before a road trip. You know where you're going, so you pack accordingly.
Smart. And to help with the crafting, which can be pretty intimidating.
Yeah.
The author actually includes a video link showing how to craft a 6-link chest piece.
Wow, that's going above and beyond. 6-linking is notoriously difficult.
It is. It's like having a personal crafting tutor guiding you through the toughest part.
Very cool. Now, in terms of gear, this guide seems to balance unique items with rare crafted items.
Right. So uniques have those fixed, powerful effects.
Yes.
And rares offer more customization.
Exactly. Think of it like cooking. You have your core ingredients, but you can add your own spices and seasonings to create a dish that's perfect for you.
I love that analogy. It's about finding the right balance between structure and flexibility.
Exactly. You're not just following a recipe, you're understanding the principles behind it.
Yeah, and you're making it your own.
And that's what I love about this guide. It's more than just a set of instructions. It's a philosophy. It's about approaching Path of Exile with a mindset of enjoyment, understanding, and continuous learning.
Right, like the author is saying, hey, this game can be complex, but it can also be incredibly rewarding.
Exactly. And to foster that sense of community and shared learning, the author encourages players to join their Discord server.
Oh, nice. So you can connect with other players, ask questions, share tips, all that good stuff.
Exactly. It's like having a virtual study group for Path of Exile enthusiasts.
That's awesome. It really shows the author's passion for the game and their desire to help others enjoy it too.
Yeah.
So to sum it up, what makes this Seismic Old Guide so special?
Well, it's incredibly well structured, easy to follow, even for beginners. The phased approach makes the whole process way less daunting.
Right, and you're not just told what to do, you're taught why you're doing it.
Exactly. And we can't forget the unconventional choices, like that whole poisonous concoction thing early on. It's bold.
It is,
Yeah.
and it works. And of course, the attention to detail is amazing. Vendor search terms, crafting tips, even a video tutorial for six linking. The author really thought of everything.
They did. But maybe most importantly, this guide has a soul. It's infused with this philosophy of enjoyment, understanding, and continuous learning.
It's not just about reaching the end game, it's about enjoying the journey.
Yeah, it's inspiring, really. It makes you think about how we approached learning in general.
You know, as you were talking about all this, the phases, understanding the why, it got me thinking, could we apply these same ideas to, like, anything?
I see what you mean.
Learning a new language, musical instrument, even just some complicated thing at work.
Right. Break it down into smaller steps. Build that foundation of knowledge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what other complex systems or skills could use this kind of structured, fun approach to learning?
Oh, man. So many things. Imagine if we had guides like this for everything.
I know, right?
Coding, cooking, personal finance. I mean, those things can be so intimidating.
There are. But if they were presented this way, clearly, engagingly.
Yeah, it would make a huge difference.
Huge. And I think that's a big takeaway from our deep dive today. The Seismic Old Guide.
Yeah.
It's not just about Path of Exile. It's a whole example of how we can learn anything with curiosity, with purpose,
Yeah.
and even with some fun.
Absolutely. And if you're out there listening, feeling inspired, the author of this guide, they invite you to join their Discord server, connect with other players, ask questions, learn from each other.
It's like a whole community of support, helping each other through the world of Rayclast. Who knows, you might discover a love for a game you never thought you'd play.
You really might. So what resonated with you most today? Was it that clever trap delay strategy? Or just the author's dedication to making learning fun?
Whatever it was, we hope this deep dive got you thinking, left you feeling like, hey, I can tackle those challenges I've been putting off. Because even the biggest tasks can be broken down into smaller steps.
That's right. And as the Seismic Old Guide shows us, the journey can be just as rewarding as the destination. So go out there, embrace the unknown, and most importantly, have fun.